All right, everybody. Before we dive into today's episode, we're brought to you by a few fantastic brands that sponsor this show. The first one is Routine. Now, this one has been a sponsor for a long time. If you haven't tried it yet, I don't know what you're doing because I've been talking about them for years. But ultimately, what was Routine designed to do? Well, when we sleep, we lose between a pound and a half of water, mostly just from sweating, something I learned when I first met these guys. Each packet of Routine comes with half an organic lemon, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and no sugar. I always like to say it's really just 3 ingredients. It's lemons, it's apple cider vinegar, it's Himalayan sea salt. I dump that into a glass of water first thing in the morning, rehydrate myself. The days I have it versus the days I don't, phenomenal on the days I do. I genuinely, it's one of those products where you feel it immediately. You know when you don't have it. Trusted ingredients, made convenient. These guys, they're the bomb. I love working with them. I've loved supporting them over the years. Give them a shot if you haven't already. Go to yourroutine.com. You can use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout for 30% off your first order. They're also available on Amazon. You can go there, get on subscription. That's what I would do. Get a 30-pack, throw it on subscribe and save, get it once a month. If you like to have more than one a day, or if you share it with folks in your house, you're probably going to need it more than once a month, or get 2 bags a month. Both of those are great options. You can save up to 15% every month on Amazon with Subscribe and Save. All right. Our next guest, holy cow, they have been a guest, but our next sponsor is NeuroRoast. Today's episode is brought to you by NeuroRoast, a company that's dedicated to helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. NeuroRoast's flagship product is their premium mushroom coffee, which is made with an organic single origin coffee and their signature blend of 5 different functional mushrooms: cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and chaga. Mushroom coffee is a new and exciting way to supercharge your day. Unlike regular coffee, which can cause jitters and crashes, mushroom coffee provides a more balanced and sustained energy boost, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. And with NeuroRoast ground and instant coffee options, you can enjoy the benefits of mushroom coffee wherever and whenever you need it. And here's some great news for my listeners today. NeuroRoast is offering an exclusive discount code just for you. You can use code ShaneWhite, that's just Shane White, during checkout at neuroroast.com to get 30% off your order of NeuroRoast mushroom coffee. Whether you choose the ground or instant option, that's just Shane White for 30% off your purchase at neuroroast.com. And all right, we actually have a new sponsor on the show. Couldn't be more excited. Love these guys. They are also out of Chicago. I have worked with them, supported them, actually invested in them. So if you can't tell, I love these guys. You do now. It's called Haywell. And for any of you who know me, you know I'm into energy drinks. I'm into caffeine, sometimes to my detriment. And Haywell has honestly been a great alternative, not just caffeine or caffeinated product, but it's been a product that I've been able to use at nighttime too, because they have a calming line as well. But really, Haywell, I'll read this to you guys. Modern life can be hard, but your wellness shouldn't have to be. Being well doesn't mean being perfect. Getting fit doesn't mean you have to fit into a mold. We need a reminder that little more joyful steps can add up to something truly meaningful. We can do hard things, but that doesn't mean we always need to be so hardcore. Wellness is meant to be enjoyed, not endured. They created Haywell to be a simple invitation to a new movement for modern wellness where all are welcome, where small steps can add up to something big, where you get more high fives and less side eyes, where you have more fun and less frustration, where flavor and function are equally famous. Wellness doesn't come in a can, but we can help. They've created a line of low-calorie, functional beverages that taste delicious and help you be a little more well in every mood and moment. They're equally proud of creating a more welcoming, realistic, and joyful flavor of wellness culture where more people feel seen, supported, and inspired to embrace a wellness journey that truly feels better for you from the beginning. Haywell is here for you from rise and shine to relax and unwind. Ashley and Britt, like I said, the co-founders of Haywell, I've worked with them for a while now, and they're just unbelievable people. If you guys want to try their products, go to the link in the bio. As I'm recording this, I don't have a discount code, but I'm sure we can get one for you guys. So take a look at the link in the bio. You can go to haywell.com. You can also go to Amazon. They're on Amazon, and it's a great place to get it. They're also available in Target. You can find them in Foxtrot. You can find them in a lot of different places now. They're doing a great job of getting distribution. But I would say the 2 easiest places, livinghaywell.com. If you just Google Haywell, you'll find that pretty quickly. And then also Amazon. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Here's today's show. All right, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of 2026. Today is a solo episode, and if you're watching this, I'm going to be curious to see what the audio sounds like after this. But definitely, if you're watching this, I'm going to be kind of bouncing per se, which is which is a funny way to kick this off. But the point of this episode this week, if you listen to my last episode with Marcus Philly, we talked about a topic that is near and dear to something that really hit me in 2025 and has become a genuinely important conversation and something I talk about in my daily life with friends and family, and that's steps. So this first episode, all about health, fitness, and probably one of the most overlooked, simple things that you can do in 2026. I thought nothing better than to kick off this year with something very, very tangible that there's literally not anyone listening to this podcast today that can't take away a little something from this episode. And I hope that it does get you to rethink this very basic metric that anyone can try and anyone can try to improve. So I'm just going to jump right in. And the point of starting here this year is I think I am probably the typical, maybe the most perfect example of someone who has overcomplicated fitness in my life. I went from being someone who was not into health and fitness at all back in high school. If you know me now and you don't know this story, you'll probably laugh at this, but I was the kid in high school who, I just didn't know a lot about nutrition, didn't know a lot about health and fitness in general. I had gotten really burned out on the key, I would call key is the bad word, just the main, I don't know, grew up in Indiana. These were like some of the main sports that I was involved in: basketball, baseball, football. By the time I got to high school, I was just burned out on them. And I flipped the script, stopped playing all three, and focused on a new sport that I had played for fun and never taken seriously, and that was golf. So a huge shift from being in three sports that were obviously dominated by physical performance, even as a middle school athlete. They're all based off of speed and strength. And even if that wasn't a main part of what I was focused on, that just inevitably was a part of what made you successful on the field. Switching to golf, then not being in the now on nutrition back then. And remember, this is 2007 when I'm in high school as a freshman. So a long time ago. And I think back to those days, and I used to get up. I didn't have a healthy breakfast. I mean, I would most of the time have a big glass of orange juice. I'd have 2 Pop-Tarts. That was a typical breakfast back then for me. And then I would go to school. We also went to school at the crack of dawn. School started at 7:30 for me. And I don't know what period it was, but I had in the first half of the day, usually I had what was called, I'm going to butcher the name of this, but basically it was like weightlifting. And I remember I would go to the locker room, and on the way I would stop at the vending machine. I'd get a Mountain Dew, like a full diesel, full sugar Mountain Dew. And I would get a what was called a Big Texas roll. And so those were the two things. I mean, I should look them up, but talk about calories, talk about sugar, carb consumption. If I was going to go in and do a crazy hard workout, maybe that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. It would have given me some fuel, but I instead would walk into the gym, half-ass it, always try to take shortcuts, not focused on hitting the numbers. We had this really cool, like, competitive board on the wall with all these different weight classes and strength numbers that if I was back there now, I would be obsessed with and I'd be going for. But back then, it was just not something, I don't know what it was. It's funny reflecting on this live in the podcast. I just didn't give a shit, to be honest with you. And so fast forward, leave high school, not in, I wouldn't say I was in bad health, but definitely thinking back to it, I was not strong. I was not overweight, but I wasn't healthy. Didn't have good sleep hygiene. And I go off to college, and luckily one of my best friends now, and was the best man at my wedding and ended up living on the same floor at Purdue, was this guy named Andrew. And he's been on the podcast a few times, a good buddy of mine. And he was the first one that got me to actually go to the gym there at Purdue. If he listens to this, shout out to you. The other guy, Alan Price, funny enough, I haven't talked to Alan in a very long time, but I'll drop his name on here. He also was a guy who I went to high school with, was at Purdue, and he actually got me to go to the gym a few times with him too, but it got the ball rolling. So long story short, going from you can tell my background of just like not understanding, not giving a shit, not caring, to then getting into college and slowly starting to realize, oh, I want to build muscle. I want to get stronger. I want to look better. I want to be healthier. That was kind of the beginning. And then you fast forward all the way until 2024, even early 2025. And I've been a guy that's gone through different cycles of just over obsession when it comes to data tracking. Now I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm wearing a Whoop, and I've worn an Oura. I've worn them at the same time, which is kind of crazy. A running watch called a Coros, which is, basically for anyone listening, it's basically like a Garmin, which has its own, same data set. Focus on all these things. Got blood work done. Now I would argue swung to the other end of the spectrum where I'm like longevity focused, but like more so just data obsessed and overthinking like what the basics are. And I walked into 2025, and I'm giving you guys all this context because I think it's very helpful for people when we then try to bring up steps like how is this applicable for anybody. So we get into 2025, and I started thinking to myself, we find out we're pregnant with our third in 3 years. I knew September was going to come. Our daughter was going to be born. And one of the things that was very obvious to me was when she's born, my world's going to change in a lot of ways. One, being a girl dad is going to be a big change. Number two, having 3 under 3 is just now we go from man defense of 2-on-2 to 3 versus 2. And me and my wife are outnumbered. So when that was coming, I just took a look in the mirror and said, like, maybe this is the time you finally stop trying to be obsessed with every metric and instead outsource this. Try to find someone who is smarter than you that can actually help you become the best version of yourself. And so I had done a lot of soul searching. I had looked and worked on a bunch of different training programs with different virtual trainers, and I just really hit it off with Marcus Filly. And so I had him on. I would go back if I were you and listen to the episode that we just posted. It was such a good interview around all these things that he simplified for me and the things that I'm focused on. But the long and short was, I've trained with him virtually through training, through diet, through life coaching, essentially from May all the way now. And I'm filming this on January 9th. So we've been working together for, call it almost 8 months. And what became very obvious to me is there are so many things you can focus on, so many things. And for a lot of people out there, I will say putting an Oura or a Whoop on, it's very eye-opening for a couple of reasons. Usually you're not sleeping as much as you think you are. Number two, it's very eye-opening for behavioral patterns. So for me, I know I've talked about this on here probably too many times at this point, but drinking alcohol was just such a huge eye-opener to me of the damage I was causing myself voluntarily week in and week out. And so out of anything, sleep consistency, alcohol consumption are the two things that those tools really taught me. I am still wearing the Whoop. It's on my arm, and I'll flash it up here if you're watching. Now, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I'm wearing it on my arm for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones being it's a better way to actually capture accurate step tracking today with Whoop. It's a whole nother episode I could probably do. However, the big thing that kind of going down on this rabbit hole and then starting to work with Marcus taught me was that in general, there's so many things flying at us every day and every week, and we are overcomplicating what the important things are that'll actually move the needle, whether that's to lose weight, to add muscle, and to just be a generally healthier person. So the things that he really helped me dial in, and this is going to be funny because you guys will laugh how simple this really truly is. Number one, and I would argue the most important, is tracking my macros and my calories. That's the most unsexy thing that you can do to be a healthier version of yourself. However, I would argue if you don't do that and you're just guessing, all these other things I'm about to talk about, they can help. They may not help as much. At the end of the day, nothing's going to move the needle as much as understanding the food and the amounts of the food you're eating that's going into your body. And I always tell folks who ask me, instead of trying to make sure everything is perfectly tracked, just get everything into the app of your choice. Okay. So for me, I use MyFitnessPal. It's a pain in the ass at first, but once you start getting in the rhythm of what you eat on a typical weekly, monthly basis, and you save those items, it becomes really, really quick. So that's step number one. And that's one of the things I did was just like starting to track everything you eat, everything that goes in your mouth, put it in the app. Start there, everything. And if it's not perfect when you eat out, that's fine. Estimate, and you'll figure out over time how accurate you were by how much you weigh in simplest form. The next thing was intensity. So when I say intensity, I think most people who I've been running around with the last few years in the health and fitness space, I've always thought of intensity as like CrossFit, how heavy, how fast you're lifting. What I've learned this last year is less about the speed. Actually, the other way, it's slowing down with lifting weights is way more impactful, but it's how heavy you're lifting. So like most people, and myself being the absolute best case scenario, I just didn't lift heavy enough, not even remotely close. And going for additional reps and over the period of time that we're talking about, making sure you're doing what's called progressive overload, where you're adding weight every time you're working out. And if it's not weight, it's reps. But over time, you're just building volume of load. That process and tracking that's honestly a little bit more complicated. And I think having a coach, and me with Marcus, that's been a superpower, is just having someone in my corner that calls things out. I send him videos every day, and that helps me to know that I'm actually doing the right weight. I'm pushing hard enough. Being your own critic on making sure you're pushing hard enough, getting an extra rep in, putting 5 more pounds on the bar, those types of things over the course of a year will turn into major differences in the way you feel and look. Now, the whole point of this episode, even though I'm 12 minutes in, is that I think the step that everyone should take today, if you're listening to this, outside of hopefully you're tracking the food you're eating, because I think that's just important in general, and it'll help teach you like how much shit you're probably eating, is tracking your steps. So this whole episode is going to be about steps, and whether it's now this classic Shane, I have a million different data sets that I like to look at. So I've tried steps on the Oura and the Whoop, and I'll hold it up for you guys who are watching. I typically, my go-to is this little $15 or $20 pedometer that clips onto your waist that I bought on Amazon. And shout out to Andy, who's a friend of mine who also trains with Marcus. We are the pedometer gang. And actually, that's my advice, because this is the rabbit hole I went down. And I'll just explain this to everyone who wants to listen to this. The Whoop is great. I found that when you wear it on the wrist and you're doing things at your desk and you're doing a lot of things with your hands, it actually tends to over count the steps by quite a large margin, unfortunately, almost double of what I was seeing on the pedometer. The Oura and the Whoop, both, the flaw is, and again, this is something I'll dive into, and this is a big eye opener probably for a lot of people. You're not getting as many steps as you probably think you are. So me, as someone who, I have a dog, Chocolate Lab, we go on 2 walks a day. We go one in the morning, one in the evening. I feel like I'm always running around doing a million things. I work out. Now it's, call it 4 days a week in the gym. I always thought 10,000 steps, that's nothing. I'm always getting that. When you actually pay attention to this simple metric, most people are not getting even remotely close to 10,000 steps. So my big one recommendation, if you're listening to this, I'll put a link to this in the show notes. Go to Amazon, spend $20, buy yourself an old school, simple pedometer. This pedometer literally doesn't connect to your phone, and you have to hold this hard reset button on the back to reset it every day. So this bad boy and me, it's just the easiest thing ever. You look down, you see it, boom, done. Move on. You have to open an app. You don't have to get lost on your phone. It's a great tool. And so one of the things that Marcus had me do in 2025 is I actually invested in one of these, and that's why I'm bouncing up and down as I'm doing this podcast. I invested in something called like a walking pad. It's basically like a desk treadmill. This is a superpower for anyone who's trying to lose weight. So right now I'm in a little bit of we call it like a mini cut. I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight before we go into the next stage of what we're doing together. I'm trying to get 13,000 steps a day. For me to go on 2 short walks with the dog before work and in the evening, and in the gym, and running around with the kids throughout the day, work, I'm in my office a lot. And so what I didn't realize, especially when it's cold out here in Chicago in the winter, is just how much more I'm inside and not moving and not getting steps. So I will tell you, if I didn't have this walking pad, I'd probably be in the range of, I'll be honest, probably 6 to 9, maybe 6 to 8,000 steps a day. That'd be just like a typical day if I'm not paying attention and just doing what I do. This walking pad has easily allowed me to get to 13,000. There's been days where I've gotten all the way up to, call it 18,000 steps if I have big chunks of time where I'm just cranking away at work and walking. This step thing, so pushing yourself in the gym or workouts, however you like to work out, making sure you track what you eat, and you know, that's a whole nother podcast that I'll probably go into and try to share out information on. If you just try to push your step volume while you're doing all these other things, even half-assed, I am telling you, if you focus on steps and you say, hey, this week I'm going to try to get 10,000 steps a day. Next week, maybe go up to 11, and you get up. And I would say if you can get in that 13 to 15,000 step range a day, and even if you want to invest in something like I have at the step, as a walking pad at my desk, it's incredible how much weight I've been able to shred. And it's just the amount of energy output that you're able to do on one of these things. But in general, just focusing on steps, it's actually a remarkable tool. So my biggest thing, and honestly, I am struggling with this. This is one of the things I started 2026 as a goal that I need to nail down. And maybe as I post this episode, this will be the goal today. I am trying to stick to just one tool because I'm also comparing a pedometer to my Whoop, to an Oura. I've been trying to really nail in like which of these tools is going to work the best and check the most boxes for me. Don't do what I'm doing because it's a waste of time and energy. And at the end of the day, I really do believe if you track what you eat, if you lift insanely hard and do progressive overload, and if you track your steps and you hit, you know, push your step volume over time to an area where you can see on the scale you're starting to lose weight. I really do think, and Marcus has really trained me to think this way, those three things will help you lose weight. Anyone listening, if you want to lose weight, get in a calorie deficit, work out as hard as humanly possible, and work harder than that. Whatever you think is hard, work harder. But most importantly, I argue, start getting steps, start tracking them, go to my link, buy a $20 pedometer, and call it a day, and start tracking your steps tomorrow. I'm going to wrap this podcast up, but seriously, track your steps. This is like one of those, it's like the oldest fitness metric I feel like in the book. Like when Fitbit first came out, everyone got obsessed with trackers for the first time. It was all about steps. And then steps quickly became something that people kind of stopped paying attention to. It's been on every tracker, it feels like, since then, but I feel like everything's gotten so much exponentially more complicated that we've all forgotten about steps. And it's been very interesting over the last 8 months for me as I've dialed my steps back in, and I'm very conscious every single day of how many steps I'm getting, how much I've changed. So I hope that's helpful, and thank you for listening. Cheers to 2026. Today, this is, like I said, I'm filming this on January 9th. It's National Quitters Day, I just saw, which means today is the day more than any other day that people start to give up on their New Year's resolutions. So I think hopefully this podcast comes out and people hear this and they realize that, first of all, if you've missed a day or 2 days or whatever it is on the goals that you set out for in 2026, don't let the beginning impact the rest of this year in accomplishing things that you want to accomplish. And hey, if you started on January 9th of buying a pedometer and tracking your steps tomorrow, and then you checked in with me once a week for the rest of this year, which anyone who listens to this, I challenge you to do that, or just shoot me a text, message me on here, however you know me or want to get a hold of me, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. Drop me a line, tell me you bought one. Let me know how it's going, and I'd love to check in with as many people as possible this year. And I can promise you, if you buy this today on January 9th, you probably get your pedometer on the 10th or the 11th of January, and you put that bad boy, clip it on your waist for the next 355 days of 2026, and you actually make an effort to increase your step volume and pay attention to it, I can promise you, you will look and feel different by the end of this year. All right. Have a good weekend. Thank you for listening. Episode 1 of 2026 in the books. Thank you.